Hello.
Radhe Radhe. Let's look at the next parts of Kahi Aisa Na Ho Jaye. Verse 2 goes, A garland I yearn to weave and adorn upon thee, threaded with the choicest stars there ever are to be. I would implore the sky to part with its moon, to light thy lamp with its calm illume. But I still fear, even when you may draw near, with my eyes so inapt I may still miss thee unsure. Then the refrain comes again, and then verse 3 goes, My faults and failings are in millions, I know. With sin and sorrow my heart is in a throe. But, O Lord, you dote on your devotees, and are known as Persified Mercy. With us fallen, with none of thy heaven, would you still be called a Saviour Maven? Verse 2 is referring to traditional Hindu ways of worshipping the divine, the giving of flower garlands and the lamp on the altar. Flower garlands are a very typical part of Indian culture. Making and selling of flower garlands is a whole profession, and one generally finds small stalls selling garlands before every temple. The garlands are given to the residing deity, yet women also wear small fragrant ones as hair decoration in daily life. The god Krishna, who dwells in the green forest of Vrindavan, is especially connected with flowers. Again and again, Mirabai mentions him as wearing wild flowers, even as his Shakti Radha is always adorned with flowers. The giving of a flower garland is part of the wedding ceremony as much as of the spiritual initiation. Whenever somebody forges a spiritual bond to a sage or saint by accepting him or her as the personal wisdom teacher, it is part of the ritual to garland the adored teacher. In return, one gets the mala, the string of 108 prayer beads, along with a personalized mantra. The belief is that concentration on this mantra will bring inner growth and ultimate enlightenment. So here Mirabai calls on Hari, the evergreen, the supreme being itself, to become her soul guide. The urgency of the call is emphasized through the tune as much as by making surreal promises of bringing down the stars and the moon as presents for the divine beloved. In verse 2, second line, she promises bringing down the moon to be used as altar light. The lighting of a lamp to create a closer connection to the transcendent consciousness is a movement which can be found in many religious traditions all over the world. There is the cult of the sun as Ra in ancient Egypt. Roughly 2,000 or 3,000 years back, Ra Horus was worshipped as the giver of life and creator of the world. In Catholic Christianity, into which I was born, there is the eternal light in church which is taken care for to never go out. Lights are decorating the Christmas tree to welcome baby Christ to this world. For the Parsis, an ethno-religious group in India, a sacred fire represents the presence of Ahura Mazda, the wise Lord. In the Upanishads, the old Indian wisdom scriptures, which German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer called the most profitable and elevating reading which is possible in the world, in those scriptures, Surya, the sun god, is mentioned in the Isha Upanishad. His effulgence symbolizes the oneness of spirit. This might have been translated into popular religious practice as the ritual of lighting an oil lamp, a deep, before the altar in worship. In autumn, the festival Diwali is celebrated for several days all over India. At Diwali, the whole house, garden and city is traditionally lit up with small lamps. Verse 3 in the song is expressing feelings of insecurity, low self-esteem and powerlessness, which make Miraji call out with deep humility. She admits her own imperfection and the omnipotence of the Supreme Being. She asks Him to take over completely all that she is. She perceives herself as utterly useless and powerless, much as we humans all do in moments of weakness. In this moment of complete inner darkness, she turns to the heartfelt bond with the Divine Beloved and calls for His support. She emphasizes Krishna's reputation as the savior and lover of his devotees, the one who never condemns the weak human beings. Let's have a closer look at what is meant by the term humility in spiritual life. At this point, I want to recommend this book about Teresa of Avila, Spain, the great woman mystic who lived almost at the same time. Both these women, Mirabai and Teresa, had an enormous positive impact on the society in which they lived. According to Teresa, humility is not a loss of self-esteem and a fall into suffering, poverty, and inability. Just on the contrary, it enables one to take failure and loss as a stepping stone towards inner growth, towards giving as one innermost soul a chance to take human judgment much against the voices of convention and social norms. Thus one gains an enormous inner freedom. The inner surrender to the Supreme Consciousness as the only true authority makes one invincible against attacks on the plane of human relationship. One can suddenly afford to begin to understand and feel for others and doesn't have to constantly try and win over them. All necessity for competition vanishes. The aspect of the divine as protector is in Christian Church, of course, attributed to Christ himself, yet even more so to Mother Mary, through whom the female, the motherly aspect of the divine is perceived. Hinduism, as such, is dedicated to worship the divine as the Great Mother and has many names for her. Yet for Mira, in this song, it is Hari, her Prabhuji, who is the Lord and Prince of her life, to whom she calls in the darkest hour. She pours out all her suffering to him, depending on his coming for relief. Someone to rely on in one's dark hours of despair. That is something atheism and materialism lack. In these mental frameworks, one would have to rely on ceaseless activity, as we see in modern world. Hard work, guided by our rational thinking. These are the principles of capitalism which are ruling this world right now. If we take one good look at this world in its current state, it seems that a change of the directions of our efforts might be a good idea. Would you agree? Goodbye and see you next week. Radhe Radhe.